Now, just a couple more pieces and you'll see how it all works. Let's go back to the debt auction. They're selling $5 million worth of nominal debt, let's say. What do they do for proof? Let me put it this way. How much would you spend per case to prove 100 cases if you knew that 85 of them would be won without any proof at all and 10 more would go away because the defendant was dead or couldn't be found? If you're a business trying to make money, your answer should be as little as possible. And that would be marked true on a true-false quiz, as an old friend of mine used to say. Another way of answering it would be to say almost nothing. And that would also be true. That's what they do. In fact, what they typically get is a table of data that has not been verified in any way and is not guaranteed by the company selling it to be true or correct by, or legitimate in any way. Now, it so happens that when lawyers bring a lawsuit, they are ethically required in every jurisdiction I know of to have some independent basis for believing the suit has merit. The courts take that responsibility seriously in most kinds of cases, but they wink at a complete absence of it in debt cases. I would be shocked if there's a single debt collection lawyer in the entire country that conducts any inquiry at all into the debt that they're suing on. I'm talking about the big debt collectors now. I suppose you could think that it was wrong, and I very much do think that that's wrong. But this video and my program are about winning in the game that's being played. If enough people do that, it will change the rules. I'm simply telling you the real-life facts here. All the lawyers will have when suit is filed is a few snippets of information, in all likelihood, no more than they sent you in response to your dispute and request for verification. And they won't have any reason to believe that those pieces of information are true. They won't have fact-checked a single thing and won't have a clue about anything considering your specific case. The lawyer that you're talking to will, in all likelihood, not have read or looked at the lawsuit that they filed against you. If you challenge him or her about the facts, he will assure you with a straight face that the debt collector's case is rock solid, which reminds me of another ethical responsibility. Yes, that would be the responsibility, the requirement that lawyers not lie to the court or opposing parties. Don't count on that one being enforced either. Just know this. No one really has a clue how good the case against you is when it's filed. If the suit is brought in the name of the original creditor by the original creditor, they may have what they need. If it's brought by a debt buyer, they almost certainly do not. But could they get it? Maybe, maybe not. Can they get it cheaply enough so that your case, even if you keep resisting and fighting it, will be profitable for them? No. So there you have it in a nutshell. The debt collectors get a little data that they can print out on a form that they either make themselves or get from the original creditor. And they have a similarly created bill of sale. You see that it's all a show, right? It often won't stand up to scrutiny, but then it's almost never scrutinized. And that's our chance. That's where we focus. And that brings us to the concept of intelligent defense. Intelligent defense consists of two important parts. First, there's the legal part. You have to probe the debt collector to find and prove its legal weaknesses. It's one thing for me to make a video saying that there are weaknesses, and it's another for you to go into court and to prove them, right? Knowing it's true isn't the same thing as proving it's true, not by a long shot. And to prove their weaknesses, you have to find out what they have and what they don't have in a way that lets you prove those things to the court. There's an art to that, and a heck of a lot of work too, but hard work is the key to intelligent defense. The other part of intelligent defense is economic, which is why I went through the numbers in such depth. Remember how I said that at first everything they do is 10 times as efficient as what you do? The economic part of intelligent defense is driving your defense to the point where they have to spend a lot of time working on your case. If you do that, regardless of whether they think they can win, which they almost always do, they'll often walk away because the case is unprofitable for them. But in order to do that, you have to make valid legal points, and you must also have the energy and determination to keep making those points in the face of their frustrating and bad faith obstacles. That takes toughness and tenacity. You can definitely do it. We can give you the tools that make you smart enough to make the right arguments, but you still have to have the determination to keep at it. And that's not usually heroic or anything. Really, it's just stubbornness. The people who beat debt collectors are mostly people who are just too darn stubborn to give up and who somehow manage not to make a big mistake. Now, if you happen to use our materials or memberships, we can help you avoid the big mistakes, right? That's what we do. I'm confident about that, at least if you also are willing to put in the time to figure out what your specific situation calls for, and that's not always obvious or easy. I'll get to the ways that we help with that in a bit. Our general strategy, though, is to help you make all the best legal arguments until one of two things happen. You win, or they give up, which, of course, is you winning. You can see, can't you, that you don't have to have us for all of this. It's all humanly possible and by yourself. I'll get to the reasons that you might want to use our services in a bit, but can you do it on your own? Yes, it just takes a lot of work, right? See, no one can guarantee success in a real fight, which a lawsuit is. You could hire the best lawyer in the world, do everything, and still lose. I hear stories like that, quite often. Or you could file an answer by yourself and have the other side simply walk away. That happens too. It's the nature of the beast. In the law, you do as many things right as you can and hope for the best. No doubt, we'll help you get some things right that you wouldn't get on your own. Whether you need that edge or whether it will be enough, those are things we can't know. Let's talk about lawyers again for a second, though. A lot of people watching this video will have already tried to hire a lawyer, so you may have a better idea of what they cost and how hard it is to find one than I do. Here's what members tell me about their search. I've heard dollar amounts for representing a debt defense from between $1,500 to $5,000 is a flat fee. It's obviously a very broad range that depends on, frankly, I think just the lawyer. That's a one-time flat fee, though. I've also heard per hour fees of $100 on up, usually at least $150, but these are rare because debt defense lawyers don't usually charge on a per hour basis at all for reasons related to how hard it is to get out of a case if you aren't getting paid, as a lawyer, that is. When you take a case, it's hard for a lawyer to drop it. The courts often won't let you. And so that means you have to be careful about committing to a case where the person hasn't got much money. And most debt defendants don't have much money, right? I've also heard of lawyers basing their charges on how much you theoretically owe. That is what you're being sued for. I think that'd be against the rules of ethics in Missouri and a lot of states. And my real concern, though, is that that plan is, suggests that the lawyer will work harder for a larger debt. And I don't think that that's true. Anyway, the lawyers charging in this way seem to be the most expensive and to get the least favorable results for their clients, from what I've heard. The point I'm making here through it all, though, is however you figure it, lawyers are expensive. Now, that's big news to you, right? As you may have noticed a while back, that lawyers also often look for the quick settlement. And yet to get a good settlement, you have to do some work, maybe a lot of work on the case. These things are not the lawyer's fault, okay? It's just the way things are. They got to make a living. I'm not saying they can't be worth your money either, just that it won't work for most debt defendants, and I'm sure you already know that. You may already know it, as I said, and it may well be why you're here in the first place. So hear me out, though. The question of whether you can get or afford a lawyer is always an important question if you're being sued, because if you get a good lawyer, that's probably going to be your best bet. It's just more expensive and undoable for a lot of people. So what do lawyers do for you? You're probably like, you tell me, you're the one who used to be one. Right. So I will tell you. The first thing lawyers do is assess your case, give you their estimate of your chances to win or lose based on the facts, and form an opinion about what you might do to improve those chances. They file appropriate things, collect and organize facts, and appear at court for or with you when necessary. At trial, they present your case. You probably knew all that, but did you notice that they're all things that you can do yourself? There are 3 things lawyers have that you don't have. First and foremost, they belong in the club. And this is not a criticism. It's not whining or anything like that. Most lawyers have paid some pretty high dues to get there, and they're in. And for debt law, the main benefit of that is that what they say automatically gets a certain amount of respect from the court. What you say doesn't automatically get respected. In fact, it may not be heard at all. And this is a fact of pro se life. The second thing lawyers have is knowledge and experience. In debt law, this isn't all that big a thing, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But it does translate into a certain amount of comfort for them and discomfort or fear for you. And the third thing debt lawyers have going for them is distance. And this shows up in what the case means to them as opposed to what it means to you. It's all in a day's work to them. You don't mean squat. At least I'm talking about the debt collectors lawyers now. You don't mean squat to them, and your case doesn't mean squat to them, except for some weird status dynamics. On the other hand, it's your life and money. A very big deal for you. And there's another type of distance that means more in a legal sense. They can ask questions and say things without being the person that they represent. For an example of how that works, consider cross-examining yourself. How are you going to do that? Well, there is a way. But it's just an example. And another big example concerns admissions. And we're not really going to go into that very much right now, but I just want you to see that lawyers have an advantage by not being the person who is actually involved in the lawsuit. When you speak, the court or jury inevitably associate your words to you as a defendant. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, but it is a thing. All the debt lawyers' advantages can be neutralized, but they should never be neglected, or you shouldn't forget about them. And we'll get back to this in a bit. You have some natural advantages too. I'll start with an assumption. That is, that you can't charge as much for your time as a lawyer can charge you for his or her time. If that's not true, my advice is to hire a lawyer to handle this case for you. They are better hobbies than defending yourself in court. But if it is true, every time you spend an hour to make a debt collector spend an hour, you are improving your chances. It isn't that you're investing less in the case than they are. It's that you are winning the efficiency battle. They are aware of that. You are driving up their costs in a way that appears sustainable to you. If you have a lawyer and she does a great job of creating a discovery package to send out, they know that you're bleeding cash. It will have cost you, let's say, $300. They may have to spend a little bit to respond, but how long can you keep up, the costs of generating good things? It's expensive. Do you see how being able to do a good job of it yourself changes the game dynamics? It's like being rich. You can go for as long as they can. And because it's real life for you and not just a day's work, you will go for as long as they can if you decide to. And believe me, they know that. Now let's look at the stakes of the lawsuit, because that's another advantage of yours. For this analysis, let's assume they're suing you for $1,000, as I said before. You can adjust the number to your situation, to whatever your situation is. My point will be the same. If you're being sued for $1,000 and the debt collection lawyer gets 25% of what she can make you pay, then you have $1,000 at stake, but the lawyer only has $250, right? And the company that's suing you, the debt collector, has only $750. Thus, you inevitably have more at stake in the case than either of the people against you, and both of them are keenly aware of their bottom lines too. The individual lawyer probably has an urgent desire to get at least $1 million in judgments per year, probably much, much higher. A personal injury lawyer hoping to make $200,000 in salary would need $1 million in judgment to do it. Debt collectors need a lot more than that. And why is that an advantage to you? Why am I talking about it? Because the lawyer needs a lot of judgments to get to their own goals. You're just a small part of their game plan. The time you make them spend on your case is time they can't be getting judgments from other people. This is really just reality 101, but you see what it means, right? I'm showing you why part of our strategy is to fight stubbornly and why a pro se party is in a good position to do that. This seems like a good time to give you a warning, and then we'll get to what your legal leg up can do for you and why I'm doing this video now. Intelligent defense means getting the legal stuff right. It means making legal arguments that are sound and trying to win the case. It does not mean making a lot of noise, raising bogus claims or arguments, or klutzing around. It means legitimate, serious, committed work. I understand the desire and hope that has people looking through the internet in hopes of finding something to say that might win easily, right? The magic word solution or something like that. And you might win. You might win with that. Better something than nothing, maybe, in most cases, I think. But if you need to win, and most people do, then you need to commit to the job. You need to understand its importance, and you need to do what it takes to win. Is that another thing that's true in real life? I think so. So, what is this lawsuit worth? Of course, you know the amount of dollars you're after. We assumed $1,000 before, and I'll stick with that for this video. But as a starting point, the suit is worth whatever they're suing for, right? As a starting point. Plus costs. You got to add costs, which are automatically added usually. And those, there could be fees also, and certain other invisible costs, which we're going to discuss. Costs in debt collection usually mean three things: filing fees, money spent on doing the lawsuit, the physical cost of litigating, and the cost of collection. Filing fees have gone way up over the past few years. When I started doing this, the debt collector spent $40 to file the suit, and that was it for filing fees. Nowadays, people keep telling me it costs $150 to file an answer or a motion. So whatever those things are in your case, those are the filing fees. Money spent doing the suit's probably going to be essentially negligible. Copying costs, postage, stuff like that. But it can add up. We're not talking about attorney fees, though. Although every now and then there's a case where they are asking for attorney's fees as well, but usually that's going to be some flat percentage of the lawsuit, if they're after attorney's fees at all. And then there's the cost of collection. If they file a garnishment to take your wages, not only will they be trying to collect the judgment, but also the cost of the garnishment. And since poor people are the ones who end up paying this, the costs for garnishment are always going up. That's life in America, right? Especially these days. Garnishment is expensive. A $1,000 judgment could easily cost you $2,000 or much, much more when it's all done. We're talking dollars now. But what about the invisible costs? We'll start with your credit report. If you beat the suit, you'll knock the debt off and improve your rating. If you lose, it will hurt you. Now, that will raise insurance costs, make it harder to get a good place to rent, and deeply harm your chances of buying a house. It will hurt you when you try to buy a car, etc. The existence of the judgment will probably prevent you from selling your current car or refinancing any loans that you have for your house or anything else. It will cure you of any addiction you may have to credit cards cold turkey. And what I'm saying there is, as you probably know, you won't be able to have credit cards. You know what I'm saying, right? And all of that really sucks. But let's go one more step further. Losing a debt lawsuit scars you. If the suit was the culmination of a bunch of harassing calls and debt troubles, you already know how much the phone calls annoy and oppress you. But that gets worse. The whole process weakens your social standing, takes money out of your pockets, food from your table, toys and education from your children, and it leaves you feeling powerless. You feel dirty, abused, and ripped off. Stop me if some of this doesn't sound familiar, right? But I think pretty much everybody knows what I'm talking about. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you curse them and declare your independence of all that sort of stuff. So you kind of run away in some way. That means that you're isolated and cut off from most of the good things our society has to offer. Over time, I think these invisible costs are much worse than the ones that you see, which are plenty bad. It doesn't have to be like this. Most people can beat the debt collectors, and we can show you how. Please take a look at the second part of this video to see exactly what we can do to help.